I've got about maybe 10 minutes of slides, and then I'll go into an actual hands-on to show the product and do a demo. I've tried to sort of mix it up a bit to make it as interesting as possible, especially given a fair amount of the audience might be tech. We're running Android emulators, VMware emulators, Amazon Workspaces to host remote desktop for Windows, and we'll be using AirPlay to be able to show things on the phone. So it hopefully all the technology will sort of hang together. In the first instance, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we do. We're a UK company that's got offices in New York and also in Switzerland, but predominantly UK. We offer an enterprise file share and sync product, which is effectively storage agnostic, but which we've done some specific work around Swift and a sort of a Swift connector. It's a full stack, it's a full enterprise file share and sync stack, and it's built to be able to be deployed on-premise. So it can be deployed directly within OpenStack Compute on Glance, and we've got a fair few customers running that at the moment. In the past, we used to provide it purely as an OVF instance, but recently we also started supplying it to be available so that it can be instantly deployed on OpenStack Compute without any conversions necessary. So what I'd like to do to begin with is just spend 10 minutes, go through the features that we've added for SwiftStack and OpenStack, and then maybe touch upon some of those as we go through the demo. So the first thing to understand about the product is that it's storage agnostic. It'll work with almost any private or public cloud storage combination, so not necessarily just one. It can work with anything up to around 30 different data stores. We've got a lot of different connectors. So obviously we've got SwiftStack, and we'll be using a real SwiftStack backend for the demo, which out of their offices. We've got also more non-traditional storage type services, such as things like Salesforce and Basecamp and Evernote, and then I guess more traditional cloud storage services such as Office 365 and Google Drive, Google Storage, DropBox, things like that. What we provide has built-in cloud security and governance features for all of the cloud storage touchpoints that have been added to the appliance. So for everything that you've added, so for things like SwiftStack or if it's Salesforce, for example, or you're using the phones, you'll get a full file event audit log. And that can be handed off in Excel format, CSV format, or you can have it output in syslog format if you're using things like Splunk or you have your own BAM dashboard. Also, because it is an appliance and it is a control point, you can add your own encryption key. So you'll get full SHA-256 256-bit encryption that is encrypted prior to it hitting the storage. So if your storage happens to be on cloud, then it's fully encrypted before it hits the storage point, which means if anybody does happen to get access to it, they can actually get into the files that they've got without rerunning it through the encryption algorithm which you hold the key for. I guess like any of these enterprise file share and sync products now, we promote secure file sharing. The way we do that is through password protection, time expiry, audit, and also policies, so that an admin can set policies around, for example, if a password is required, what the password would be, whether all links will time expire after a certain time, whether they'll time expire after one download, and all those features can be controlled centrally. And of course, underneath, the audit feature provides full audit across the whole gamut of that. And of course, very important to enterprise file share and sync, which a lot of the consumer products actually don't have, is file versioning, file locking, and most of them do have the trash feature. But it's quite important to be able to have global file versioning, global locking, so that if you're working in teams, you can take advantage of the same type of features that you would have if you're on desktop. So the solution provides a full enterprise file share and sync above any storage, and it works with pretty much everything. So it works natively from the web. We support all the different mobiles and tablets natively, and we also provide, as well as sync, which most people these days are used to because of the DropBox use case, we also provide cloud drives, which we'll see when we go through the demo. And the cloud drives provide a CIFS interface into the backend storage. So you'll get direct CIFS access through the cloud drives into SwiftStack through Windows, Mac, or Linux. Everything we do is built to be fully brandable. So in the demo, you'll see that we branded it for SwiftStack. And that flows throughout all our product. So branding it from a web perspective, or branding it from a mobile perspective, or branding it from a desktop perspective is pretty easy, and you'll see how easy when we go through the demo. The product also integrates with best-of-breed identity management, so that means LDAP and Active Directory. But we've also done integration with things like Kerberos and other identity management systems. Out of the box, though, you get LDAP and Active Directory. The system itself, as supplied, is multi-tenant, which means that if you're an ISP, you get multi-tenancy for the different companies that you're hosting, and if you're a company, you get multi-tenancy for the different departments. All of which, of course, can hook into the AD, permissions feature. The whole solution, as well, has been built with collaboration in mind. It's got a number of different facets and features for that. The first of which is the project workspaces. So if you want to collaborate with people outside of your organization, you can create virtual workspaces so that you don't have to create a shared folder like you would inside the organization. You can create a virtual workspace to share files. It's also got built-in web office editing, like you get with Google Docs, Office 365. It supports file commenting from a collaboration viewpoint, so that if you're actually interfacing with somebody over a file, and you're not doing it in real time, but you're just commenting on the file, it'll keep the track of the comments. There's full PDF annotation built in, so we have our own PDF annotation suite that supports Burn as well. Of course, you get the versioning and notifications on the file and folder sharing, and if you're used to things like Evernote and Instapaper, where you might want to collate bookmark links, we support that directly within the product and from the toolsets. Another important part of security, especially from an organization viewpoint and a user viewpoint these days, is bring your own device. So the product has got bring your own device features built in which you can manage devices at a not only at an organization level, but also at a user level. And it also works with best of breed, such as BlackBerry Sector and Oracle Mobile Security, where we've done the necessary integration and adapted the clients to work in those environments. The other thing you can control around this piece is IP and geo restrictions. So if you wanted to restrict access to a certain folder or to a certain user over IP or geo address, you could do. A fairly unique feature in terms of what we do is support for a protocol gateway. Essentially what a protocol gateway does is provide access points to the underlying SwiftStack storage so that it can be accessed over common protocols. In this case, FTP, WebDAV, SFTP, and Amazon S3. So if you wanted to get access to your SwiftStack storage over common FTP, WebDAV, or SFTP, you could do so. And we've got clients who do that right now with OpenStack backends, where they keep a product catalog on the back end using an OpenStack Swift instance, and they give access to their clients over FTP. We also have an extended version of our product that integrates with Apache Solr. This is provided as a separate VM, which again is normally kept behind the corporate firewall, and it indexes the contents and documents of files that are stored in the SwiftStack cluster. So you get full Google type search and access to your documents, and that flows throughout the product. One thing to note about what we do with data is that when we work with data, we're not doing anything special to it. We're not seeking to rename it. We're not putting special proprietary indexes in the name so that if you went outside of the tool, you couldn't actually access it. What you put into the object storage is what you get out the back end. So there's nothing special there. If you decided you want to get, you wanted to throw away the solution and get direct access to the object storage, you'd be able to. There's nothing we're doing there that is proprietary in any way. So just a quick summary on the slides. We're providing a private enterprise file share and sync for SwiftStack. It also works with other private or public storage points, including SaaS storage points such as Salesforce. It's multi-tenant. It doesn't tamper with the data. It's fully brandable, right the way from the mobile to the desktop. It integrates with best-of-breed identity management systems. There's a big focus on cloud governance and security features. It has strong collaboration features, promotes that as part of the product. It's got built-in BYOD, but integrates with other best-of-breed. And in the extended edition, it can support deep search through the use of Apache Solr integration. So what I'd like to do now is go through the solution and provide a demo. What I've got here is a version of our appliance that is actually running from our office. It's being customized and branded for SwiftStack. Part of that is being able to add our own widgets on the front end. In this case, we've added an RSS widget that is pulling data back from the SwiftStack blog. But if we wanted to, we could choose to add another type of widget, or indeed, you get access to this as a JavaScript sandbox, so that if you wanted to add your own customized widgets, you could do so. And we've got customers who take advantage of that to do things like top 10 product catalogs or top 10 sales in the last hour and things of that nature. I'm logged in here as the administrator of this particular company instance. And there are many of these if you're running it as a multi-tenant solution. So this could be just one of many. In this case, I get access to a lot more options here than I would get if I was just a user, and we will log in as a user after I've shown you some of these admin features. So the first thing to note is that we can manage users if we're not using Active Directory or LDAP to manage users, of course, because in that case, the user management piece would be handled by the authentication system of choice. But in this case, we've added them directly, and we've got roles that you'd probably be used to from managing cloud file servers. And if I go into edit a user, I've got this user called Neil. He's using the default SME auth system. He's got a certain number of roles. We're using SwiftStack as the provider, and we've not added two-factor authentication in terms of restrictions for him, and there's no IP address restrictions. We also haven't done anything around limiting his storage space. Here we've got some BYOD options about what tools he can access. At the moment, nothing's blocked, so he can access everything. Maybe we decide, he can access something like Windows Phone. In that case, he would be blocked from using Windows Phone. I can add new users from here. As you can see now, you can see a blocked device, the Windows Phone device that we've just blocked for this user. And I can manage users. If I wanted to use Active Directory or LDAP, then I would decide which of these I wanted to use, what the authentication system was, and how that was going to work. And then I could pair them up. For this demo, I'm not going to do that because it's quite involved. It takes 10-15 minutes to do that in terms of pulling back the instances, doing the sync, etc. But it's fairly straightforward. The roles that we've got set up here are the ones I've set up, but if you were using Active Directory, then they would be pulled through. Same with LDAP. I can also jump into the roles, and I can do things that are a little more granular than just assigning the role. So even though I might not want to make people in the marketing role full administrators, I might want them to manage their own users. I might want to give them access to adding other clouds. I might want to give them access to audit logs. So I can do all of that by editing what role tasks that particular role can have. Next thing of note is the shared team folders. So by default, the SME system is permissive. And what I mean by that is when you set up your SwiftStack cloud and you add it, although users will get their own space in that SwiftStack cloud, when you add them, they won't be able to see any data inherent within that cloud unless you enable them to do so. And once you've enabled them to do so by doing folder shares, you can then decide what permissions they have within those folder shares. And you can do that using the Visual Permissions Manager. You can decide which user you want to select and what permissions they have on that particular folder. And the permissions works in a similar hierarchy to what you get on normal cloud file servers, in which it'll work at the folder level first, and then the role level will override the folder level, and then the user level will trump all. Also, you'll notice we've got some extra items here, more granular than maybe are typical, because often you find that just being able to apply the common elements that you would get from a file server don't really cut it. You want something that's a little more granular, like choosing one of these, but maybe not giving them the ability to create subfolders or upload files, etc. thing to notice about the shared team folders is that you can do some pretty neat things with them. Each folder that you assign, if you wish to, can have an email address. And once it has an email address, that email address can be used by the users of the cloud file server to email documents directly into the folder. So if you're on a project and you're on the move or you're at the office and you're getting sent things as attachments and you don't have a chance to get off your phone and you don't want to get too involved by trying to save it to the phone and then maybe uploading it somewhere else, all you have to do is forward it directly to the folder and it will be saved. As part of the cloud control features, you can also set up pretty granular rules against the folders and any subfolders they're in. So you can set up these audit watch rules and create watch expressions and then decide which notification system you want to be told on. In this case, we've only got two set up, which is the Twitter private message and email, but maybe we'd set up SMS and had an SMS gateway here also. And these would, if you want to watch a certain file, if it's been shared, if you want to be notified if a file's been updated, or if new files have been added to a folder, you can add those rules here and decide which users or all users get notified. So you can get real-time notifications on files as an audit watch. And you can choose, if you wish to, which users can manage folders. As an admin, you get access to setting a lot of different things in the cloud file server. So you've got a lot of user governance options around what can be turned off in most cases, and also what can be audited. So you can use these to actually enforce policy on the remote files that are hosted on the instance. So here, for example, we can log events. We can decide how granular those events are that we want to log. We can decide whether they're written out as syslog format or not. Of course, we can control global two-factor and global IP address restrictions and enforce things like strong passwords, etc. And then we've got the encryption features, where we can decide to create an encryption phrase to be applied against the files at rest. And so on and so forth, where you've got versioning options, annotation options, user interface options, global notifications on comments, and the branding. And that's all controlled by the cloud admin. The audit log section is what we talked about earlier, where we get some pretty granular access to what's been happening in the cloud for the files that are stored there. This can be searched against in real time, or if a compliance officer wants to know about a particular user and what files he's had access to, or what particular file history was for a certain event period, you can do all that here, export it as an Excel file, and then just hand it off to a compliance officer. So you've got quite a lot of things that you get here, one of which is cloud migration. So maybe you want to get people off what they're already on and onto SwiftStack. So what you can do there is you can take any of these clouds, you can enter your authentication details using OAuth or whatever their authentication mechanism is, and you can literally just populate your SwiftStack cloud. And this is available on the web, but we also provide a Windows tool that does the same thing. So that's just a very quick run through of some of the admin features of the cloud file server. Of course, a big piece of it is the cloud file manager. So the cloud file manager is a hierarchical file manager that gives you access to your SwiftStack files and folders. And each of these may or may not have files or folders within them, and each of these will have things that can be done to them, based on the file type. So, for example, maybe if it's a Word document, maybe I want to go away and edit the file. In that case, what will happen is the Office integration will kick in, it will instantly make that file available for edit, and I'll be able to edit it directly within the browser. And it comes through actually pretty well. If I want to make any changes, I can make the changes, and then I can choose to save it. And then what happens is it gets saved back to the back-end storage through the integration. The same thing happens for other types of files that I may have. So maybe I want to play a podcast. that type of stuff. Or maybe I want to play a hosted video. You know, all of the different files will have different associations, and each of them will do different things. This can be used entirely without any of the other clients if needed, because it works on iPad and mobile. If it's on mobile, you get a responsive file manager rather than this larger file manager. And you can also enter full screen mode so that it's just an app within your browser. And if you want to enter new files, you just literally drag and drop them onto the desktop or choose to upload. Each of these files can also be securely shared. So if I want to, I can decide that I want to generate some links, and once they're generated, I can decide whether I want to set an expiry or a password for security. Now, of course, if we'd chosen to set a policy, then this would be pre-populated and the user wouldn't have an option about what to do here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to log out as the admin and log back in to the user view. So we had this user, Neil, and I'm going to sign back in as him. I've set it up so that he goes straight into his Cloud File Manager, and as you can see, he doesn't really have many options because we didn't actually give him much to do. You'll notice he has an extra folder here. That's because he's uploaded a folder called Project X to his own personal cloud space. And he can add as many of these as he wants to based on what permissions you've given him to be able to do this. And if he wants to upload some files into the web browser, actually he can just drag them, drop them on them, and the files will go away and happily upload. So pretty responsive web file manager. It works very well. It integrates with all the best of breed tools. It gives you essentially the type of things you get from Google Apps and Google Docs, except it's working directly with your SwiftStack. You can do other things here as well. You can choose to lock a file if you're going to edit it, and you can also do things like commenting. So if any of these files have comments on them, you'll see a little comment box. And if I pop the comment box up and go to full file and comment view, I'll see that I may see that there's a comment against it. And I can collaborate with other users on comments in real time. I'll also get a view of the actual document. And in this case, because it's a PDF, I also get the PDF annotation tools in case I want to mark it up in real time as I'm talking to whoever I'm collaborating with. And you'll also notice I get a full history of what's going on with the document, including geo information of where it was uploaded from and where it's stored at with lat long in terms of that geo info. How many times it's been downloaded, is it public, etc. So you get the idea. You get a full collaboration suite that you can work on. Supports locking, supports file versioning. It has some extra features around things like tagging. If you want to be a little more sophisticated around how you want to group those documents, you can do so. Of course, you've got the Solar Search that works directly from within the browser. And you've got these virtual group workspaces we talked about, whereas if you want to collaborate with people outside the organization, you can decide you want to create a new group and then share files with that group and invite the person you're sharing with to join. So that's the web file manager. That's the sort of intro to the web piece. What I'd like to do now is jump over to Windows. So now I'm on a Amazon Workspaces instance for remote desktop. And again, here you'll see I have branded items where we've created them using our packager. I mentioned earlier that we've got this thing called a packager. The packager, the best way to think about it is like a pre-compiler. It allows you to change things around each of the tools. In this case, it's Windows. And when you change things, you can select how you want to deploy it. So you might not want to give all users access to the tools, or you might want to give different departments different access because some might be power users and some might not be. And you can control all that directly from here in the Cloud Packager and create your own branded version of the tools. And once you've created it, you get something like this, which we've done for SwiftStack. And that takes about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to do that, maybe a bit longer to create the icons. Once you've done that, then what you get is, one of the things you get is a CIFS cloud drive. So we've got this cloud drive, it's been assigned the letter S, and we can see all the files and folders that this user Neil has access to, including the one project Y, which you just saw me upload. So that works obviously very well. It literally is what you would expect from a network drive. So you can double click on files, launch them in Office, save them back directly into the remote SwiftStack instance. The great thing about this is you can do things like have your users set up on your traditional networked cloud file server in the office on the Friday. You can move all the data across to SwiftStack instance over the weekend, and when the users come back in, they can see the same drive letter and get access to the same information, but it'll just be hosted on SwiftStack. And that could be behind the firewall or outside of the firewall. Other things you get is add-ins to Gmail. So we understand that a lot of people, work directly from things like email, and you probably know things like ShareFile from Citrix, which allows you to upload, link, and create links rather than create files. So you can do exactly the same. You can decide that you actually want to share a file directly from the cloud. You can pick one of those files, whichever one it might be, and you can choose you want to share it. You get a similar sort of window that you saw from the web. Whether it's pre-populated or not is going to depend on whether a policy is set, and then you can share it. And it will be shared directly. And if you want to upload a file from the desktop before sharing, you can do exactly the same. And of course, when you're doing this, it's done safe in the knowledge that all of these links are going to be audited. So they're going to be audited. We're going to know which user shared them. If we have an audit watch, we're going to be told in real time that the user shared it. And once somebody's opened it at the other end, if I've selected the audit option at that level, I'll know the remote IP address of the person who opened it. So I've got full end-to-end audit tracking. Of course, the other thing that's important is not just a real-time view on data, it's also sync. So you probably know things like DropBox, which already provides a sync type tool. This is very similar. It's probably a little more granular in that it supports folder to folder, as many folder to folders as you want from as many different clouds as you want. So in this instance, what you can do is you can map one folder to another folder and it'll just sync in the background like what you get with Dropbox. So that's obviously perfect for offline use. And you can get a similar thing to like you get with Dropbox. You get a little folder where it keeps all those files and they're all available for me to use offline. So as you can see, you've got a pretty Dropbox-like experience on Windows, except it goes a little bit further and integrates directly into Microsoft Outlook and also gives you CIFS access from a drive. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip over to my VMware instance. So this is a VMware of Mac. And the reason I created it is I didn't want to pollute my own Mac as I was doing this demo. So this is a Mac running a virtual Mac. And here we've got similar sort of setup. As you see, it just discovered in real time that folder we just uploaded, Project Y. So we've got access to all the files from the cloud drive, the CIFS drive, as we did before. And here, we've also got access to the files and folders in a Dropbox type fashion that we created earlier. And they've been added to our sidebar, and they're all available for us to access offline. Also, if we wanted to, we can dig into what's been happening by going into the console view. And we can do that both for the sync and for the drive. And lastly, if you want to do a search, you can do a search on here for any documents. And once you've done the search, you can decide if you want to share those documents, and you'll get exactly the same view as you got before. Also, unlike, I guess, the ShareFile product, we haven't treated Mac as a second-class citizen in terms of how file links can be shared. And you'll see we've got our little SwiftStack email logo there. That, guess what? We created with the Mac packager. And once we click on it, we get a similar sort of experience that we had on Windows in terms of how we can go away and share files. There's our little security share file. And I end up with a very similar thing, where files have been shared through links, fully auditable, all the way through. I didn't load a Linux VM, but the experience is very, very similar on Linux, except you don't get the integration with email because we support quite a lot of different Linux distros, and it's difficult to support the different email clients. Next, what I'd like to do is quickly switch across to my Android instance. So this is, again, a packaged version of what we've created in terms of the logo, etc., for the Android app. But same thing as before, I can go through, I can see which of my shared folders, I can see my new Project Y folder that I created a little bit ago. I can go into here, I can decide I want to share, might want to get a URL. I get exactly the same view I got before in terms of the security options for the file. If I wanted to email it, I can, or I might just want the URL to be copied to the clipboard. Also on these devices, I get access to offline files. So if I want to be able to set up the syncs, I can do. On the mobile devices, we make you explicitly set the sync up because you may be syncing things on the desktop that would totally nuke your mobile in terms of capacity and size. So Android is very similar. Next one I'd like to do is the iOS client. So this is using AirPlay on iOS. Again, if I launch my SwiftStack iOS client, it will go away and launch. It'll ask me to log in. And if I enter the password details correctly, we should end up in a similar place to what we've ended up with the other apps in terms of seeing exactly the same data, exactly the same type of security features, etc. So you've got a lot of consistency around what you're getting here. Everything pretty much looks and feels the same around what happens. Everything's done with security in mind. The whole thing hangs together as an enterprise file share and sync product with a particular focus on security and audit and a particular focus on user experience in terms of what can be achieved